Video script 9.1 Rationality versus Reality. The Psychological Stickman. John sits in the neon glow of his neo-finance headquarters, surrounded by data screens and high-frequency trading charts. To the outside world, John looks like the perfect economic machine. He calculates net present value in his head, understands the money multiplier, and tracks the Federal Reserve's every move. In traditional economic textbooks, John is what we call Homo Economicus, or economic man. This version of John is a perfectly rational, self-interested being with infinite processing power and flawless self-control. This John always chooses the option that maximizes his utility. If a keyboard costs $100 and provides $110 of value, he buys it. If it provides $99 of value, he walks away. There is no emotion, no fatigue, and no confusion. For decades, this was the bedrock of financial theory. The assumption that every participant in the market acts like a sophisticated computer processing all available information to make the objectively best decision. This is the engine view of the world, one where every gear turns exactly as the math predicts. But as John looks out of his office window at the bustling city below, he sees something very different. He sees people buying custom keyboards they can't afford simply because they want to impress their friends. He sees investors panicking and selling their shares just because the price dropped for a single afternoon, even though the long-term fundamentals haven't changed. He even catches himself scrolling through social media for 3 hours when he should be finalizing his quarterly tax strategy. John realizes that the rational stickman from the textbooks doesn't actually exist in the real world. Instead, he is dealing with this psychological stickman, a creature of habit, emotion, and limited mental energy. This is the starting point of behavioral economics, a field that combines psychology and economics to explain why people make the choices they do. As Brealey, Myers, and Marcus point out in their work on corporate finance, if the market were perfectly rational, there would be no bubbles, no crashes, and no easy money. But because the market is made of humans, reality is much messier than the models suggest. The first major challenge to the rational model is the concept of bounded rationality, a term popularized by the economist Herbert Simon. John recognizes this in his own life. Even if John wanted to be perfectly rational, he simply doesn't have the time or the brain power to calculate the optimal choice for every single decision he makes. Should he buy the $2.50 coffee or the $3 one? Which shipping provider has the 0.5% lower error rate over a 10-year horizon? If John tried to calculate the perfect answer to everything, he would never get anything done. His brain is a biological organ with limits. To cope with this information overload, John's brain uses heuristics, mental shortcuts, or rules of thumb that allow him to make quick decisions. While these shortcuts are efficient, they often lead to systematic errors. John isn't just making random mistakes. He is making predictable psychological mistakes. These mistakes are not glitches in the system. They're part of the system itself. One of the most profound realizations for John is that his economic self and his psychological self are often at war. In standard finance, we assume that people have perfect self-control. If John knows that saving $500 today will grow into $5,000 for his retirement, the rational John would save it instantly. But the psychological John sees a flashy new digital interface upgrade for his office and buys it on impulse. This is what economists call time inconsistency. We want to be disciplined in the future, but we want gratification in the present. John realizes that his financial success isn't just about knowing the formulas for compounding interest. It's about building choice architecture that protects him from his own impulses. He starts to see his customers not as data points, but as humans who are influenced by how a price is presented, the environment they are in, and the choices of those around them. Gregory Mankiw notes that behavioral economics doesn't just suggest that people are stupid. It suggests that people are humanly rational. Our brains evolved in a world of physical survival, not in a world of complex derivative markets. When John sees a limited time offer on keyboard switches, his ancient brain screams scarcity. and triggers a fear response that bypasses his rational neocortex. He buys more than he needs, not because the math says so, but because his biology says so. This gap between the calculated value and the perceived value is where fortunes are made and lost in the world of finance. If John can understand these psychological tripwires, he can design better products for his customers, and, more importantly, he can build a fortress around his own wealth. He begins to realize that the most expensive thing he can own is a bias he doesn't know he has. By the end of the day, John closes his ledger and realizes that Section 9 of his journey is the most important yet. He has mastered the engine of the business and the sea of the macroeconomy. But now, he must master the driver, the human mind. He understands that while the formulas of finance are the map, psychology is the terrain. If he ignores the terrain, he will crash, no matter how good his map is. He begins to see that being a pro in the market isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the person who is most aware of their own tendencies. John is ready to stop pretending he is a computer and start learning how to manage the beautiful, complex, and often irrational reality of being a human in a world of money. He is ready to explore the specific biases, the anchors, the fears, and the herds that govern the neon streets of neo-finance. He is no longer just a manager of capital. He is a student of human nature.